Chapter 27. One man gives freely, yet gains even more. Another withholds unduly, but comes to poverty. A generous man will prosper. He who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. Proverbs 11:24 and 25. Two tourist dive boats arrive at Grouper Hole, so Jean Michel decides we should weigh anchor and head for less crowded waters. Scott Reef lies 3,000 miles further to the north. We're hoping that the reef's remote location will make for ideal diving conditions. The more inaccessible reefs almost always have more abundant marine life. As Alcyon sails into the night, none of us could have anticipated what the morning would bring. Scott Reef is a long chain of shallow shoals and jagged reefs, with a tiny island towards its center. The little island barely stands 8 feet above the ocean, with almost no vegetation on its few acres of barren ground. As such, we are not anticipating to see much of anything above water. So the small fleet of Indonesian fishing vessels at anchor here comes as quite a surprise. There are over a dozen of the crudely built wooden boats. Each is about 40 feet long, with a crew of 8 to 10 men and boys. We maneuver Alcyon towards an anchorage. Two of the Indonesian boats run up their sails and head in our direction. As they approach, I notice that their sails are made from common plastic tarps. It is a sure indication that these fishermen are from a very poor village. Desperation has driven them a long way from their homes in Indonesia. With only cheap compasses as their guides, they have come over 1,000 miles to fish these remote waters. The two boats appear to be racing as they tack off to our port side, where they quickly lower their sails. The competing crews rush as they each launch a canoe, which the men and boys frantically begin paddling toward the stern of Alcyon. As the ship's medic, I have immediate concern that they may have a medical emergency. Yet, as the two crews arrive at the back of the Winship, their urgent need turns out to be something more basic. "Water!" shouts a 12-year-old boy. "Please!" He's holding up an empty 5-gallon water can. The other canoe arrives with the same compelling request. Reaching for the youth's empty container, I notice that both canoes are full of empty water containers. The men and boys in the canoes stare up hopefully, looking toward the other boats. I notice they are all raising sails and heading in our direction. "I think we're about to have a lot of company," I say to Jean Michel. "In just a limited amount of water," replies Jean Michel. Alcyon's reverse osmosis water filters can convert less than 600 gallons of seawater into drinking water a day. To fill the containers in just one canoe would take a fourth of our total water supply, and there are over a dozen boats heading in our direction. Yet there is one additional component that makes Jean Michel's decision even more complicated. The main limiting factor in the length of time the fishing boats can stay on the reef is determined by the amount of water they carry. The more water we give them, the longer the Indonesians can stay to pillage the reef. It is a horrible dilemma because these people are trying to support families back home. Yet the fish and other marine life they are taking are not strictly for their personal consumption. The goal of the fishermen is to sell their catch so they will have money to buy consumable items like motor scooters and televisions. Jean Michel makes an instant decision. Give only 20 gallons of water to each boat. Then get the dive team together. I want to check the conditions of this reef. That afternoon, we dive an extraordinarily beautiful reef that is practically devoid of fish. The Indonesians come from an extremely overpopulated country. Their reefs are mostly picked bare, which means they must range further and further to realize even a modest profit. These people are poor and living under adverse conditions. They cannot be blamed for wanting to take care of their families and raise their standard of living. But does that mean we should contribute to the continued destruction of Scott's Reef? It is a question without an easy answer. Meanwhile, we are discovering something fascinating about the water world of Scott Reef. The place is crowded with sea snakes. Considering that the snakes are not very large, does not increase the respect these reptiles have earned. The sea snake is one of the most venomous animals in the world. Their bite is almost always fatal. Fortunately, their mouths are very small, which means they cannot bite through our wetsuits, nor our rubber gloves. Despite our supposed protection, we are extremely careful around the marine reptiles. Turns out that Anton has a very real fear of snakes. He keeps his distance from the slithering reptiles, but is completely unaware that one is behind him. It is only curious and soon swims away. Our dive causes some amusement among the Indonesian fishermen. Lacking fins and wearing goggles carved from wood and plastic, they are accompanying us on our dive of exploration. Noticing our preoccupation with the sea snakes, they decide to perform for us. The men and boys grab the deadly snakes barehanded and take them to the surface for play. They wrap them around their throats like neckties. Incredibly, the sea snakes don't bite, which would be fatal. The Indonesians refer to them as their friends. In a modern society, it is sometimes apparently easy to attempt to define the world in scientific terms, but our planet is too big and diverse for that. These unassuming people who call a deadly animal friend are simply being honest. Their culture has not taught them to fear sea snakes. They know the world from a different perspective than modern cultures. We shop for our food in stores. They shop by fishing, farming, and gathering. We fear sea snakes because we know them to be potentially fatal. Yet the villagers who have never been bitten know them as friends. When people in modern society fear a creature, their normal response is to kill it. In America, when someone kills a shark, there is almost never any sympathy for the shark. The word shark is one of the most feared words in our language. When we swim in the ocean, almost all Americans fear the possibility of a shark attack. Yet, this is such a rare occurrence that we stand a much better chance of being struck by a lightning bolt. As we continue our dive, Jean Michel leads us deeper down the side of the reef, and abruptly there is an explosion of marine life. The Indonesian fishermen, with their crude goggles, are limited to the first 20 feet of water depth. They have not yet learned to reach these depths, but one day they will. There is no simple solution to this and other global problems. Yet the way we approach these worldwide problems does have a simple answer. For this very reason, make every effort to add to your faith goodness, and to goodness knowledge, and to knowledge self-control, and to self-control perseverance, and to perseverance godliness, and to godliness brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness love. 2 Peter 1, 5-7. Back on the Alcyon, we share the water that we have, and to make more water available to the fishermen, we forsake our daily showers. The grateful fishermen tell us that our arrival has saved them from having to go to the island's well where the water is bad. Earlier in the afternoon, we had gone to the island. The well the fisherman is referring to has signs around it that says danger, cholera. If they drank there, some of the Indonesians would die. For them, it is a fact of the harshness of their lives. Toward sunset, I'm standing at the back of the windship when a couple of the Indonesian boys swim to our stern to beg for a drink. Getting a pitcher of refrigerated water, I forget to bring glasses, so the boys place their hands together to drink from them like a cup. They are surprised by the chill of the water, but not so foolish as to separate their hands and let the precious water flow out. While pouring the water, I think how two hands placed together is a sign for friendship and for sharing. It reflects a state of mind where people can work together, whereas a single hand, raised as a fist in anger, means there will never be any easy solution. Our best chance for solving the vast problems of the world is to approach them together. When the water is gone, the boys prepare to return to their boats. Urging them to wait, I rush below and get several of our kites and bring them out onto the deck. The kids are thrilled. In Indonesia, making kites is a national pastime. We fly the kites together well into the twilight. When the boys leave, laughing as they swim off into the night, I determined that tomorrow Captain and I will fly our kites for them underwater. That should give them an interesting story to take back to their village.